It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Kink Consultant. I am here in person with now what I'd consider good friend, Aubrey Aust. What are your accolades again? I know you're doing a graduate degree at NYU, but in relational psychology and philosophy.
Hey, you got it. Nice. Very good.
Tell me, Aubrey, what are we talking about today?
Let's talk about it. So I study relational psychology and philosophy, and part of that is establishing how we build trust and safety in relationships, both psychologically and somatically. So a lot of my research has to do with BDSM as building that practice and looking at the relational laboratory that it creates. So how people are able to explore fantasy, desire, wanting in general, and how we're framing that in language and physically with each other.
What a coincidence. These are all of my favorite topics. And
Things.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be speaking now to an expert on it from a different side. I think I have the feelings down, the practice down, but the psychology of it is a little bit, I mean, I work with a lot of clients on it, but the official, like what has been studied, I have not done that so much. So
let's talk about it.
Now you talk a lot about Freud.
Okay. Can I say I love Freud? This is kind of controversial.
This is the topic then.
Right.
What?
So Freud, for his time, was actually quite progressive.
Okay, I believe he was progressive, but was he progressively wrong? Like Andrew Tate's progressive, but
fantastic point. Yes, and a lot of the things that Freud did would not fly now. Hitting on your clients, sleeping with your clients. Sure, go for it.
All things that also still happen now, though.
True.
I'm not sleeping with my clients. I'm just saying these things happen.
Now they're more frowned upon in society at large. But when we look at this, I look a lot at Freud and fantasy. And I think the stuff that Freud, he was the initial thought leader in this process. And I think there's still value to that because he...
In fantasy and sexual fantasy.
Sexual fantasy.
But when I hear Freud, let's just get this out of the gate. Didn't you think all men were obsessed with their mothers and women were obsessed with dicks?
Yep.
And in my experience of experiencing many men, I was never obsessed with a dick. So there were some really good dicks. Like, I'll be honest. But, like, that's the point. Like, yeah, some stood out, but some were just boring. And then I don't meet a lot of men who are obsessed with their mothers. Although, when you talk to a man about what he's looking for in a wife, it is very much, if he liked his mother, it's what he was looking for. And then I had an ex who loved that I was curvy and had ample breasts because his mother was very thin, rail thin. And he just viewed her as not a caring woman.
Interesting, isn't it?
Want to know something even more interesting? When I wanted a breast reduction, we had to go to therapy together. And this all came out in therapy because he didn't want me to get one. And I was like, okay, I understand this is scary. I'm going in for surgery to modify how I look. Empathy.
Yeah.
Let's go talk to my therapist so we can have a more fair conversation.
Right.
And that's when I found out that the reason he liked women with bigger breasts is because his mother had none and he viewed women with bigger breasts as more caring. Fucking mind-blowing, right?
Fascinating.
Okay, so now I'm like, all right, Freud, maybe you have some...
And I was going to say, Freud would affirm your experience of saying, well, wait a second, I am not obsessed with all of this. This doesn't come to fruition for me because it's unconscious.
Oh.
You wouldn't have awareness of it.
Okay.
But he would say that subtly, there's something that you are not recognizing in the subconscious that is driving you to behave in the way that you do.
With men's dicks? I want to explore this because I'm like, I hide nothing from anyone, especially myself.
Right.
I would say, I sit next to you and I just spill my guts about my family life.
I love it. I'm here to receive.
I mean, I feel like I have daddy issues, but that has nothing to do with a cock. My daddy issues are abandonment of him not being there once I hit a certain age. How does that relate? That's the thing. Not everyone has that experience, whereas everyone has a mother, whether or not they have an experience with her. You know what? Actually, just fuck Freud, because the man gets to be obsessed with his mother. The woman has to be obsessed with the dick. Fuck you, Freud. All right, I feel better about this conversation already. Okay.
Okay, personal questions. What would you want to feel in that relationship with your father?
Presence. Him being there and accepting me no matter what. Whether I'm successful or not, it came down to success and accomplishment, and I would want to be accepted whether I had those accolades or not.
How do you want to be received by a dom?
Honestly, it's really funny. If you had just said a man, I probably could have answered it, but a dom feels so vulnerable.
Yeah.
I want to be received, ironically. I want a dom to see in me that I could be better and do better and pull and push it out of me. Do you know what I mean? Get more from me. So the opposite of what I want, just full acceptance from my dad. I want a dom to probably play the role my dad played, more of like, be better. I know you can be better.
To get you to that state, where you are then worthy of acceptance.
Yeah. I know these things.
It's how
too.
we all
I
are.
No, I know these things.
Yeah.
I don't like to saying them out loud.
No one does. That's
Yeah.
not the fun part.
Yeah. The fun part is the fantasy.
Right. And so that's where we have that intellectual playground. And actually, I want to take the word intellectual out of it. It can be a playground for eroticism. And that is a place for us to leave the mind behind in a lot of times and move into body and soul.
This is why kink is so much easier for me. I have no problem stepping into that, leaving it behind, and exploring it and understanding it. It is that previous point of what am I actually trying to achieve by finding a dom? And it's harder to do that self-exploration because it's hard.
Yeah.
It hurts to say it out loud. And I can ask the questions. I can even ask myself the questions, but to be faced with really showing up honestly, that's hard work.
Yeah.
Who does it for you?
As in a person or in
no,
the feeling?
In the who draws it out of you? How do you face yourself and get these answers?
I terribly lean into the chase.
Okay.
I find myself attracted to dynamics in which I find that challenge because I feel like it gives me something to meet.
Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, definitely. Childhood.
But
this is,
yeah.
But it's kind of a similar situation to you because I had very affirming parents.
Oh.
Who said, we don't care what grades you get, we just know you're trying your best. And I, from a young age, was an incredibly high achiever, constantly striving to be best of the best, top of the class, straight A's, all the things. And so then when in my relationships and what I'm attracted to, I want someone who's constantly trying to raise the bar higher and higher and higher because that's something that I felt like I needed to push myself to do. And so now what's erotic for me is outsource that to someone else and make me chase after that.
Oh, damn. That sounds like a lot of work. That sounds
so much work.
That sounds like so much more work than
I'm working overtime.
Yeah, for real. Okay.
And so something I'm trying to navigate now is realizing, in my romantic or emotional relationships, maybe this isn't the most beneficial dynamic for me. But what does that look like for me to play out in fantasy or in power exchange? And that's something that can be fun to tap into.
I like to tap into the dark places and bring them out and play with them. It is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can own it. And I've had multiple experiences. I even write about some of them where I have jealousy or self-doubt or I feel, how often am I talking about my weight and my appearance?
Yeah.
And I feel like when I can pull those out and play with them in this context, it becomes more palatable outside of the context, like in my real life. It's healing.
Can I ask how jealousy shows up for you and what that does to you, if it's a turn on, turn off, like how you respond to it?
Oh, I get jealous and it lights up that part of me that wants to chase and get attention and win. I think that the jealousy piece is I want all of the attention. If the attention is anywhere else but me, I take it as a personal slight on me, like as like kind of like I'm not enough, but also I just have to try harder. Like it all circles
See why
back.
we're friends.
No, for real though. The person that I'm going after doesn't even need to be a high achiever or anything like that. I just need to want their attention for one reason or another. What the real mind fuck, the worst thing that could possibly happen to me is somebody wanting me back because then I'm done. I'm out. No, I say that facetiously. That was like me 10 years ago. Yeah. Me now is like, no, meet me where I'm at. Please come find me. Let's have fun together and be one. And that's why I think I've had in the past year since my breakup, I've had some of the best sexual experiences of my life because I'm looking for someone who's showing up and then we can have fun together. Yeah. 10 years ago, especially before I met my ex, that was my pattern. God forbid someone liked me back.
It's terrifying.
It was done.
She's healed now.
Yeah. I wish I could say that. I'm healing every day, but I will say that what I accept in relationships is very different now.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to call out what I see. We famously, unfortunately, I feel bad for my podcast listeners even having to hear this word. We famously broke through the barrier of the German. We worked past where our needs were not being met. And like, I moved on from it slowly, but like, I moved on once I realized, okay, I'm never going to be met here. There's no point in chasing.
Something I would love to talk about here and something, I'm exploring and it sounds like you've undergone in your relational journey is the power of honesty, both in relationships and in sexuality. So let's start with the fun and kinky. How important is it to be honest about desire?
That's like number one. With kink, I think honesty about desire is important no matter what because there's a core part of your being that needs to be seen and we do that through desire. That's my belief in a lot of ways. If you're not being honest, there is some shame there and shame is really dangerous for relationships. So you have to think in life, why have you not been honest in general? Like, what are the reasons? It's because you're scared. You feel ashamed of maybe something you've done. There's guilt. So I think the antidote to shame is bringing it out in the open and being totally honest about it. Non-negotiable, 100% honesty. You need to be, or else you run the risk of never being met, never being seen.
And a lot of the work that I do is with selfhood, and integrating the unconscious and what we haven't processed into our personhood. And what I study in relational psychology is the self, quote unquote. This is very theoretical and philosophical, just giving you a warning, but that self doesn't exist outside of the relational context. There is the I, which is biological, who we are as an individual being, and then there's the me, and that's the integrated self, who you are seeing, how the parts of me that you affirm, the parts of you that you reject, and all of your responses and how we relate in our relational environment integrate into how I see myself. And so that's the construction of the quote unquote self. And I think that's so interesting when we apply it to the context of desire and the sexual self. On if you are with a partner who continually, where there is shame in that relationship, or denies a fantasy or a desire, and what that can do for selfhood.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious on how you see that with the people that you work with, or working through that. How do we begin that process of integration?
That is where I have to go 10 steps back from where you even just started, of talking to the individuals themselves and understanding, well, usually I work with one person who's kinky and the other person who is not, but the difference is they're at least curious or open, or they want to learn more. So for the kinky person, I get to their core desire, because what I really need to talk to the non-kinky person is to understand, what is your core desire? Please don't tell me you want a chastity K.A. John. I mean, yes, please tell me you want a chastity K.A. John. But I need to understand what that gives you. What are you feeling when you have a chastity K.A. John? Is it freedom? Is it safety? So that when I work with you and your partner, I can explain to your partner what you want isn't just the chastity device. You want the feeling of freedom, punishment, safety, attention. And then we can start focusing on the feeling. This is just so core part of the work. I'm getting to the answer. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it.
We focus on the feeling that they're trying to achieve because it's relatable. All of that is about relation to each other, whether it's shame or not. So I need to make the kinkier partner relatable with something that's not always quote unquote relatable. Okay. So then I talk to the other partner and I start to understand their own desires, their confusion, their hesitation, where their shaming might be coming from if they have shamed the kinky partner. And I start to break down everyone's thought process so that it's like, okay, let's get to the core of what this is. And for the person who might accidentally be shaming their partner or just not interested, what's their core belief? Why are they not willing to explore this? And then I throw all of that information away for just a half a session. I say, okay, now talk to me about your own desires. And I want to get deep on them telling me about their fantasies, as opposed to just telling me like the psychological breakdown of it. I want people to get excited so that we can start to build up from there. Okay. So what we've done then is we've kind of like deconstructed where the core of their shame is, their shaming, their desire. And then we build up from there by making each other relatable. And that is how you're beginning to repair self, because you're teaching the others like, okay, husband who wants chastity, here's where you're at and here's what your wife is seeing, but like, let's reintegrate who you are and what you're actually asking for. Wife, I understand this is all new and surprising to you. I understand why that might be something that you're embarrassed about too, and maybe projecting that onto the person, but let's get down to why you feel that way about things. And now that we understand that, maybe there's something you're excited about exploring, and it's helpful to do it for someone else. It's like helpful to think about someone else's psychology and why it's easier to point to someone else and say, I'm judging that because I feel X, Y, and Z way, than these are my desires and I'm judging it because I feel X, Y, and Z way. Does that make sense? I know
I'm with you.
Okay. I struggle sometimes to really break it down, but this is something that happens over 4 or 5 sessions with people, but it's all with the goal of like, how do I help these two people relate to each other? And then it allows for a lot more self-acceptance, and then acceptance of the dynamic that they want in their relationship. If you've ever thought about doing what I do, becoming a certified sex and relationship coach, this is your sign. The next Somatic certification training starts this month on October 24th, and you can get $750 off your enrollment with code TKC25. Somatic is the world's leading sex and relationship coach training, and getting this certification completely changed my life. It not only helped me become the kink consultant, it's also where I learned to connect deeper, communicate better, and guide people toward pleasure without shame. Let pleasure be your guide on an exciting new career. Sign up today at somaticinstitute.com and use code TKC25 for $750 off.
And what about people who are struggling to be honest with themselves, of denying desire, fantasy, the forbidden?
That is one where I put in extra work. So what you're describing is normally, in my experience, I will have a kinky client come to me and they'll say, I really want to have this with my partner.
Mhm.
And then when I start to work with the partner, remember the part where I said I throw it all away and ask what their desires are?
Yeah.
I sometimes have to do 2 or 3 sessions specifically focused on what are your desires and helping populate the menu for them to even light up at one of these options. So my approach to that when they're struggling themselves is I give them options. And I'm like, what sounds interesting? My favorite thing to do is if someone's really turned off by something, I was like, what sounds most disgusting? What's the most disturbing? So that I start getting someone to open up about their feelings one way or another. If you think diaper play is absolutely disgusting, and many people do, I'm not one of those people, tell me why. What makes you uncomfortable about it? Let's fucking go.
That's so good.
And then I let them just like really air out all their disgust, and then we pare it down. All right, so what's slightly less disgusting than that?
Work our way backwards.
Yeah. So like what I like, I'm a huge fan of working backwards. So like when someone is struggling with it, I'm like, all right, let's go far end of the spectrum. How does that make you feel? Uncomfortable, gross, not safe in my own body. And it's like, why? And then like we work back to what would make you feel safe. So sometimes I like to go, let the pendulum swing the other direction.
And I love what you said about what does that feel like in my body? Because so many people never have the opportunity, first of all, to pause and reflect on that question, but also stop and think, wait, what does a yes feel like in my body? What does a no feel like in my body? Where do I hold tension surrounding this thought? Where do I open up surrounding this thought? And the somatic component of it is something that hasn't been lost. If you look to indigenous ways of thought or throughout history, so ingrained into how we functioned as societies, as communities. Amanda and I spent a lot of time today talking about what it's like living in America and New York and the lack of community that we have in a lot of places. I'm based in Brooklyn now and experiencing that myself. How we've become so divorced somatically from ourselves, but also community at large, that we've lost that connection of what do these things actually feel like and what does good embodiment feel like to me.
With good reason, like you have to sort of shut off. Do you think you'd feel very embodied if you were walking into New York City every day with that like level of vulnerability? We're actually being asked to do gymnastics of like, okay, out in the world, hold yourself together, be safe, survive.
Literally.
Now come into intimacy and let everything like be as honest as you possibly can. Let that vulnerability out. And that is in a direct opposition of what you've had to do for 14 hours outside.
Exactly.
It's so tough. And it's interesting you mentioned indigenous and other cultures where it's less ingrained that you have to shut that part down to stay safe. But it is true. As much as I love to be in my body at all times, when I'm on the subway, I am not in my body. I am on defense mode of I try and create like an invisible shield around me to protect my energy on the subway, because that's something that I believe works and helps me at least mentally. It's hard then to come back into a relationship and feel as close as we can while having experienced that outside. So everyone knows I spend a lot of time in New York when I can, but I'm a softer person in Vegas and I feel the change when I come to New York.
Wow.
I know I'm friendlier. I want to have conversations with you. I want that in New York, but it's not the vibe. And it doesn't feel safe to do it. Not physically safe. I'm not talking about the dangers or crime or anything. I just mean that like people are busy. The rejection is going to be there. I don't have time for this conversation. So, I mean, that's fine, but it's a difference.
Did you find you experienced that softness or that transition immediately when you showed up in Vegas, or did it take time?
Oh, great question. No, I was met with it. I would go to a Starbucks and the person serving me didn't have 40 orders after me, so they could literally talk to me. And that's disarming. You're like, oh, this is a space where we can have a conversation. Now I know my baristas by name. They know me. Like, it's good morning, Molly. You know, how's it going? I know her name. Like the way that New York doesn't allow for that. So it was a quick transition, not immediate, but it started with me having this knowledge that these people want to talk to me. They want their day to go a little bit faster and they don't have enough customers to make their day go faster. They need to have interaction. And then I met them where they were at and it became a very pleasant exchange. That's just one example.
But I'm sure it integrates into so many aspects of your life there versus here.
Just the friendships, the closeness, the ease of, hey, do you want to meet up tonight? It's a different world.
So much is situational and also relational.
Situational is key though.
Yeah.
I need to take a second to talk about something I never thought would make me this excited. Lube. I've been doing a lot more personal exploration lately, and when you're playing with toys that need a flared base, a good lube is essential because your body's not going to lubricate itself back there, no matter how much fun you're having. My go-to has always been silicone because it lasts longer than water-based lubes and it feels smoother overall. But Lube Life's ultra slick thick silicone lube is next level. It's got this creamy texture that melts into your skin without disappearing, so it stays perfectly slick. It's the smoothest lube I've ever used. Soft, rich, and makes everything glide effortlessly. So, whether you're solo, partnered, or somewhere deliciously in between, trust me, you're going to want this on your nightstand. Check out Lube Life's Ultra Slick Thick Silicone Lube. Link is in the show notes. That was a great point. What else is I love that she came with a list and I was like, what's up?
Checking it twice.
What else is on your list?
What else should we talk about? I wanted to talk about performativity in sexuality because that's a question that I have coming up a lot in my research because from the perspective of selfhood, what's erasing the self versus what is giving you the opportunity to expand it? So the specific case that I was thinking about, say someone says they are capital S submissive, typically do not explore outside of that role. They meet someone, fall in love, oh no, their partner's also a sub. They need to snap into more of the role of a switch or suddenly have to dom more. And that feels outside of
who they are.
Right.
Yeah. I also work with couples who have this. And I actually, one of the tactics I guess I used, and I learned this from a polyamory coach, was week on, week off. You get a week where you're the sub and a week where they're the sub. So no one's needs are being met 24/7, but you're meeting each other. Okay. But to answer your first question, authenticity, right? You cannot pretend to be dominant if you are submissive. But what you can do, and I'm a firm believer in this, is everyone has a little switch in them, even just maybe a 1%. But the switching might not actually be psychological. It might be physical that they can switch. You need to tap into the energy. I believe you can connect with your dominant energy. You can connect with your submissive energy. It's a practice. It's like reprogramming neural pathways when you have a self-belief. You have to come up with new ones and kind of dig that road for yourself so your brain goes a different positive way. I talk about that as tapping into your dominant energy, and I work people through, let's talk about when you feel most dominant. When do you feel most yourself and in charge? And I try and look for that thread to pull on where I'm like, okay, this is a dominant path we can go down. Let's go. But I haven't talked to the entire world, but in my experience, I can find it with every single person that I've spoken with so far. However, I like build in the fact that I have kinky and I have an Instagram profile that's specific about kink. If you find me that way in the first place, I'm called the kink consultant. Yes, I'm AmandaDames.com, but most people who find me are already a little bit kinky. So I'm self-selecting.
There's
they're
curiosity.
self-selecting.
Yeah.
However, I have never spoken to someone who's like, no, I really can't do it. I've heard of these people, but I also just believe they don't feel safe in exploring another side. When I've run into that, if I can't find that thread, I look at why is submission such a part of their identity? I try and discover why they feel safe in submission to understand where can we find them feeling safety and dominance. However, at no point do I ever force anyone to do something they don't want to do. The idea is, do you want to show up for your partner in this way? Do you have the capacity to show up? We start there. I'm not in the business of forcing people to be kinky.
No.
I do think most people are kinky though. And then you just have to figure out, like
everybody's got something.
Everyone. It's like, where's that desire coming from? To your point though, authenticity, and I believe it's doable. It's just about leaning in and finding a cheat sheet way to get into that energy for yourself. Do you feel you're dominant or submissive?
Revealing. I mean, normally switch.
And you're switchy in your
all
whole life.
ways,
yes.
Right? So that shows up for me is in I don't have a gender preference.
You really don't.
I really don't.
No.
And if you look at the people I have dated and had partnerships with, range in every single possible way.
I can attest to this. You've told me about your partners. It really was a range.
And how I meet that person is so dependent on our dynamic, and then how I show up in my sexual self is entirely dependent on what that connection looks like.
Question for you though. Okay, I understand the look and gender of a person. Like, that doesn't matter. But what I am going to ask is, are you stepping into it, and how much of this is possibly people pleasing of what you think they need and then stepping into that role?
Such a great question. And that's why I asked you about the what do you do with the performativity aspect of it, because I was actually just talking about a friend with this. We are both chronic people pleasers, and how much of this is actually people pleasing. And that was something that I had to really step back and consider for myself of, wait a second, do I actually want this? And I feel like when I'm able to truly feel grounded in that answer is when I have been with a partner for a while, and you get to that point where you have to unlearn the sexual scripts of, this is what I like, this is what we do. Because things get to that point of, oh, this is the script that we've been playing out for a certain amount of time, but wait a second, I feel a resistance to this in some type of way. And to keep that spark alive, you first have to go within yourself and say, wait a second, what do I actually want to nurture here? Is this script of what we've been doing actually serving me, first of all, but us? Do you like this? Or are you still having fun here?
Yeah.
And then talking about that.
And we're taught not to serve ourselves first.
Yes.
Which is like, I don't know if that's a purely woman experience, or we're taught to be kind and to care about everyone else. Religiously, we're taught to think about other people before we think about ourselves.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, I feel like we're bringing everyone in, and halfway through the conversation, we spent a large part of today talking about religion.
We did.
And just the effects it's had on us. It's easy to think that we're doing good by serving everyone else, and that we're being selfish by serving ourselves. I rarely ask, is this serving me? I'm fortunate enough that after many years, I just know what is serving me, but like,
it
takes time, because I remember feeling a lot of shame about feeling selfish. That's it's like, oh, is what I'm doing selfish? Even as a submissive, I feel guilt for the focus having to be on me. In fact, one of the reasons I don't think I brat and I try and be a good girl is like, oh, bratting would inconvenience somebody.
I can't do that to them.
Yeah,
be rude.
I can brat from time to time, but I'm not a brat, because I'm like, the significant inconvenience I would be cannot play that role.
So interesting,
isn't it? Like, that's how I know I'm a good girl, because I'm like, no, I feel bad being
so good.
No, but
being to the praise kink.
No, but that's the other thing. I don't even fully have a praise kink. Like, when I get good girl, I'm like, was I good enough?
Oh, you just want to be a high achiever.
Yeah, like, degrade me.
Yeah, I love that. That's nuance, Amanda.
I know. Yeah, I'm a difficult. Like, see, I can't afford to be bratty. I am already difficult enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not. But like, I am.
That's how
you know,
see it,
that's how I see it. It's like, oh, I already need so much. What is the most authentic version of myself?
And so that wouldn't be pleasurable to you necessarily to be bratty, because then you're just so concerned about the inconvenience that you're providing to the other person.
Yes, and it's a fear of, will they leave me? Will I be too annoying?
Root fear.
Hats off to the brats out there, maybe living my dream. It's funny, because I actually, when I top, I enjoy playing with brats, because it gives me this opportunity. I know they're not going anywhere. They're bratting for a reason. I get to brat back.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun.
That's such a fun springboard.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is where I get the banter in.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get the banter in when, like, I'm bent over and being hit with an implement. Like, I'm not looking for more banter. I'm looking for it to stop.
When you're topping, is that purely within the context of play?
Yes.
See,
but
that could be a difference.
Here's when I dom sometimes, like, I had a sub late last year, early this year. One of the things I so enjoyed was helping him better his life. I cannot tell you how many subs have LinkedIn profiles, because I was like, you can achieve more, but that's my ingrained thing of success looks a certain type of way. Things look a certain type of way. And maybe that's not what they want. I mean, oftentimes they do want something that I'm like, you know what would help you? This.
But at the end of the day, that is the psychology of kink. And don't get me wrong, it can also be, hey, I want to try handcuffs. This is fun.
Yes.
But the deeper layers to this are integrating the unconscious parts of us that we have yet to admit to ourselves.
Yes, 100%.
And that is with the goal of bettering ourselves, showing up as a fuller version of ourselves in this world. And trust me, we don't have to make it that deep if you don't want to.
No, you don't. Like, that's so true.
There's so much fun and play and amazing, wonderful aspects that you don't have to use this as therapy. And that's something actually controversial that I'm studying now, is there is so much power to this. Should we start looking at this as a therapeutic modality? Which is such a controversial conversation that we need a whole other episode in, and we're not going to fully dive into on this.
It is controversial because for me, I focus so much on the desire of it and just the enjoyment of it and how a couple can integrate it. But yes, maybe there's
deep healing work that can be done there.
And I have definitely done it. I've grown with people in it. Yeah. It's just honestly, it's how do you bottle that?
Right.
Because we have cognitive behavioral therapy. I have to say that out loud because if I say CBT on my podcast, it's also cock and ball torture. It's so
Easily confused.
Yes, so easily
Yeah,
confused.
I get it.
So there are different modalities of
Mm-hmm.
therapy. There's just not enough structure around BDSM and kink.
Right.
And that's, I think, where I get hung up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Always say kink is like religion in my experience. Kink and BDSM is like religion. There are a lot of educators out there. There are a lot of us out there talking about it. And people follow certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a dogma or a religion. I recently saw someone say, doms can't be brats. These titles have meanings and a princess is this. And it's not a creator I have any like feeling one way. In fact, I follow him because I'm like, what are you going to say today? Like, I want to hear your strong viewpoint.
Bring it on.
I might not agree with it. I'm not going to fight it because I'm like, that's his viewpoint. I have my own viewpoints of titles, roles, all of this stuff. And it's almost just like Christianity. There's multiple different, there's Catholics, there's whatever you might be, there's Episcopalian, there's
raised Protestant. I don't know what the hell I am now.
Lutheran, like there's all of these things and they're mostly the same, same generalization, but the individual things have some very specific beliefs that are different. I actually view kink and BDSM as the same. It's like we're all just marching to the beat of our own drum. It's sort of similar. Like there's God, there's Jesus, there's Mary, there's like the fundamentals, but the details are different. And that's how everyone practices kink. And then I'm like, how do you decide how to do this as a therapy? Where's the measurement?
Love that perspective, which I very much align with too. And something I'll say, just speaking from my research, is I speak to therapists about this. Sex positive, kink positive, all the affirming boxes therapists. And I speak to pros who are in BDSM. The pro doms say they have a lot of people in their BDSM kink spaces saying, hang on, don't make this quote unquote normal. We want to keep this taboo and outside of the therapeutic realm. That takes away from what this is. And they don't like that umbrella term.
This sounds like gatekeeping to me, though.
Is it? And then therapists say, no, I understand there's great merit to this. This can be a healing act. But therapy is already so red taped. I mean, even if we just look into licensure and where you can and can't practice in certain states, that there are very specific rules of what therapy is. There's no realistic way to integrate BDSM as quote unquote, an actual therapeutic practice right now, but looking at it from the perspective of, no, this can be an outlet to explore yourself physically and emotionally in ways that cognitive behavioral therapy you might not necessarily can't. CBT, another way to explore yourself.
No, okay, you're really onto something here because that's why I coach. I mean, like, I didn't go get a degree to be a therapist, but coaching does allow for some of that integration in what you're describing, healing, especially as a somatic, a certified coach. There is so much about the embodiment and what's happening and the feeling that we've talked about earlier, but with the kink side. The difference is it's not therapy, it's not bottled, it's not regimented. Do you know what I mean? It's really left up to interpretation of what feels right for you, how are you processing it, and do you feel safe in it?
It's a bigger container.
Yeah, it's a bigger container.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably where my hang up about therapy comes in because coaching allows for so much connection.
Right.
And that's what therapy doesn't have, that level. We talked about this earlier, just the attunement, me trying to attune to you in a connected way, body, breath, mind.
Yes.
That therapy, for all the right reasons, doesn't cross that boundary. Probably for the safety of everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Because I was having earlier, if you don't mind me sharing, I was having an anxious moment and I'm like setting up the podcast equipment. And I'm thinking, why do I feel like this? And then I'm like, oh, I feel you. And then we talked it out to see like, okay, this is the feeling. What does that actually mean for you? Because I have my own understanding of those feelings and what causes them, but the feeling was there. It was just the understanding of where it was coming from.
That was such a cool moment to me because instead of just staying in my anxiety, wait a second, we can talk about this.
Because I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah.
It was interesting.
And that's the relational field.
Yeah.
That's the space that you're co-creating.
Yeah.
And social baseline theory says we co-regulate each other. And so even if I'm not expressing it, whoa, you're picking up on something. You can still feel exactly what's running through me.
Yes.
Not exactly what I'm feeling, but how you are experiencing that. Yeah.
And it's only through the somatic work I did and working with different coaches, and I've spent a lot of time working with people who practice different modalities so I can learn for my clients, that I've been able to even separate and recognize, wait, this isn't my feeling. I scan my own body and I'm like, this isn't coming from me. It must be coming from somewhere else. You just happened to be the closest person. But also we had talked so openly about some deep things.
Yeah.
And I think that that's another thing. It's taking space. We were so in conversation. I was attuning and listening. But when we sort of stepped back from the actual conversation is when I was able to scan my body.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't up here. I was in my body focusing on something else. And that's the way, like, I picked up an energy and walked away with it for a little bit. And then we came back and processed.
Yeah.
It's so deep. And that's, I think, why I'm like, okay, therapy doesn't allow for that. Okay.
We created these past 3 hours that we have not shut up during just talking to each other, created our own little relational laboratory here in so many ways.
Yeah.
Where we have explored so much. I feel like you have met me in such beautiful ways that I love my therapist to death. But this is also an experience that I feel like allows me to integrate a lot of different parts of myself. I haven't had the opportunity to, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's really affirming. I work with a lot of different people, so it's fun and nice to work with a friend. Really, like it's like
it's a new container.
It's a new container because normally I do this with couples as well. But I really enjoyed it. Now we are at time. So I'm surprised that we've gone over for what both of us were like. We have a hard stop. That hard stop happened 10 minutes ago. By the way, that hard stop. Okay, you can follow Aubrey Aust on Instagram as Aubrey Aust, right?
Aubrey_Aust, my website, aubreyAust.com. Join my newsletter. And also, I have a podcast coming out. Hint of Trauma should be up and running by the time this episode is live. Follow along for more discussions on identity, desire, and construction of selfhood.
And my hope is that you will be on here again.
You cannot get rid of me. Don't worry. I'm here.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amanda.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.